What's that word we keep hearing? Unprecedented. It is, isn't it? Just about everything has been that these last few months. It's never happened before. It's unparalleled. Well, that's been our experience. But what would our forebears think were they to look down through history at us now? And what about our God? I'm sure we're all missing lots of things just now, whether it's family or friends, church, travel, a visit to our favourite pub or coffee shop, or maybe even the workplace. The list goes on. So much has changed and many things may never be the same. However, our God does not change. Jesus is and remains our sure foundation. God's plan is focused on Christ. He is the cornerstone. We immediately think of that in the context of a building. It's the foundation or setting stone, the first stone laid in the construction, and all other stones will be placed in reference to it. And it determines the position of the entire building. Without it, or if it's wrongly set, then we'll have a squint building, weak foundations, a fragile or wobbly structure. So working from home has its charms, especially in this wonderful weather. But I've missed being in the office and around my colleagues. And when eventually I've got that joy of the Met Line and a walk to the office just off Fleet Street, some things I'm sure will be just the same. The old magnificent buildings will be there, and the many newer carbuncles too. And the view from my office is a case in point. I can just see the dome of St. Paul's, but over the months, slowly but surely, the edifice that is 22 Bishopsgate has appeared behind and now towers over the dome. And even although it's a mile away from St. Paul's and I'm looking uphill. But every day I also walk past St. Bride's Church, whose spire is said to be the inspiration for the tiered wedding cake. I can see it just outside my office window. And so a little digging into its history reveals a picture of unprecedented events at this site. From at least the 1st century, there's been a house there, built by the Romans, and you can still see the Roman pavement in the crypt today. A stone wall church was built in the 6th century, and over time that was replaced with other buildings through Saxon and Norman times. It was the first church you came to when travelling between the cities of London and Westminster. And in 1205, the equivalent of our Parliament was held in the church itself. Samuel Pepys was baptised in the church, and in the 16th century the church developed links with the Fourth Estate, as the clergy, being the most literate in society, became the printer's best customers. Then, in 1665, the Great Plague hit. The rich decanted out of the city, but the poor had to remain. The vicar stayed, and the parish worked hard distributing relief to the affected families. But over 2,000 in that parish died. The next year, well, if you know your history, more disaster. The Great Fire struck. A new vicar had been installed just some 2 weeks before. The destruction of St. Bride's was so complete that no attempt was made to hold services in the ruins as had been possible elsewhere. In 1671, the church wardens took Mr. Christopher Wren for lunch at the Globe Tavern. I was just thinking, maybe Sir Norman Foster to design the West Gate, a nice lunch with Sarah and Giles at the gate, perhaps. Well, after a year of persuasion, Wren eventually agreed to design a new building on the site, and it was one of the first churches to open after the Great Fire. But of course it happened again. Come December 1940, the church was destroyed in one of many fires started by a Luftwaffe incendiary raid over the city. The medieval gospel lectern, which had been saved at the time of the Great Fire, survived again, but the church bells melted in the intense heat. In the early 50s, services were held in the church, but in the open because there was no roof. And before reconstruction commenced, excavations were needed in the crypt, and these revealed thousands of human remains, both from the time of the Great Plague and also the cholera epidemic of 1854. So the history on our doorstep is fascinating as well as enlightening. Whilst there's no denying or belittling the suffering that our pandemic has caused and the tragic loss of life, it does bring you up short. Look what's happened before. What can we hold on to now in these unprecedented times? What will we hold on to when other difficult times come around? Well, it has to be Jesus. He has been there through all time. He is everything we need and everything God has to give us. So will we build on this true, firm and first foundation? A verse from Isaiah. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am placing a foundation stone in Jerusalem, a firm and tested stone. It is a precious cornerstone that is safe to build on. Whoever believes need never be shaken. And from Acts. For Jesus is the one referred to in the scriptures where it says, the stone that you builders rejected has now become the cornerstone. There is salvation in no one else. God has given no other name under heaven by which we must be saved.